Good afternoon, and welcome to the 100th anniversary celebration of the American Legion here in the 4th District of the Department of Massachusetts. Please rise, remove your hats or salute as appropriate, and direct your attention to the flagstaff as the VFW Honor Guard raises our national colors and the Oakland Beach Boys performing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land and of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So nice.
Proud to do it.
Thank you. That was awesome. Looks like our pole needs a little more grease, though. My name is John Canty. I'm the commander of the Gaudette Kirk Post 138 here in Spencer. I hope everyone was able to enjoy the grand parade today. I apologize to anybody that was inconvenienced by the road shutdown, but no worries. I promise it won't be another 100 years till our next Centennial parade. Between 3 and 4 years ago, discussions began about how Gaudette Kirk Post 138 which was chartered in September of 1919, could celebrate its own centennial, when we realized not only was it our centennial, but the American Legion nationally as well. There is a display at the rear of the field over by the cattle barn that shows the timeline of the American Legion from the very beginning. I hope everybody can get a chance to go over there and take a look at that. Our 100th anniversary committee was formed just over 2 years ago under the command of George Parkin, followed by James Latown for the last 2 years, and now myself. Allow me to introduce the core members of that committee that are most responsible for bringing this event to life. James Latown, immediate past commander. Jerry Perrin, past commander and current vice commander, who first sounded the alarm that this event needed to happen. Scott Connor, past commander and current post chaplain, as well as the senior vice commander of the District 4 Department of Massachusetts. Carol Perrin, our post finance officer. And Grace Connor, our post adjutant. And even though their titles are shorter, they're most of the glue that held this together. And yours truly. There are many people to thank for all their efforts and contributions, all of our great sponsors that you can see on our banners and in the vendor buildings behind you, all the post members from not only Spencer, but from many posts near and not so near, our state senator Ann Goby and state rep Donnie Berthium, our local select board, and so many more. Allow me to introduce some of our distinguished guests. Some are here on the stage, some in the audience. First, I'd like to introduce our American Legion Massachusetts Department Commander, Jody Paycheck.
Good afternoon. Don't worry, it's large print. It's not going to be as long as you think. I would like to extend you the greetings of the American Legion Department of Massachusetts and bring you the regrets of our past National Commander John P. J. Comer and Paul Morin, who are unable to join us today. This is a memorable scene at the end of Saving Private Ryan in which a dying Captain Miller tells Private Ryan to, quote, earn this, unquote. It is his way of reminding the private that the heroic men who had given their lives for him, that he owed it to them to live a good and moral life. In a sense, this is exactly what the American Legion is asking us all to do. For we all owe an enormous debt to the fallen men and women who died defending this great country. This debt very much in one mind of the American Legion founders when they gathered in Paris just a few months after the end of World War I. They did not form an organization out of self-interest. They did it to serve their comrades, their communities, and their country. The bedrock of their existence would revolve around 4 pillars: a strong nation's defense, Americanism, support for veterans, and mentoring our youth. Today, the American Legion doesn't recite these pillars, we live them. For instance, we believe this is important to take care of the families of those who served in uniform, for they too are carrying an enormous burden, which often includes frequent moves, long separations, and they worry about their loved ones may never return home. We have a moral obligation to the young people whose parents have made the ultimate sacrifice during the war on terrorism. The American Legion's Legacy Scholarship was created to help pay for the college education of those who lost a military parent serving in 9/11. The American Legion is a central player in the Blue Star salutes and other patriotic and troop support events held in hundreds of the communities across our great nation every year. We continue to serve the veterans even when the fighting ends. Past National Commander Harry Colmery, the author of the American Legion's greatest piece of social legislation, knew that it was right for America to aid returning the war veterans by making it possible for them to attain formal education, get jobs, and purchase homes. While others scoffed at such a benefit would break the treasury, the American Legion held firm and endured the passage of the Service Regiment Act and has thousands of service officers displayed across the country, all eager to assist any veteran with benefits claim, free of charge, regardless of Legion membership. We are there, natural disasters hit, awarding National Emergency Fund grants to the Legion members and their posts, often within a few short days of the request. Though our Heroes to Hometown program, the American Legion with the Department of Defense is to provide help to those who need to rebuild their lives when they come home. Another way the American Legion supports the troops is by assisting their families while they are deployed. Whether it's mowing a lawn, shopping for groceries, the American Legion Family Support Network stands ready to assist the families in need. We show our appreciation to wounded, injured, and ill service members throughout Operation Comfort Warrior, which has provided more than 1 million of gifts to our wounded warriors since 2007. The American Legion also championed the preempt study of the effects on Agent Orange, exposure to Vietnam veterans, which was later presented to Congress at the White House. The American Legion helped put Agent Orange and post-traumatic stress disorder on Washington's radar. We support the Constitution and the Vietnam Memorial with our words and our wallets, raising over $1 million in 1982, more than any other organization. We were major fundraisers for the National World War II and Korean War memorials and formed the Persian Gulf Task Force to enhance our service to Gulf War veterans. The American Legion serviced the youth of America with outstanding programs such as American Legion Baseball, junior shooting sports, Boys State, Boys Nation, and high school oratorical contests. The American Legion was supported by the Boy Scouts for America since 1919, and today, along with American Legion, Auxiliary and Sons of the American Legion charters more than 2,600 scouting units comprised of nearly over 70,000 young men and women. And our support has made a difference in the recipients of the American Legion Child Welfare Foundation grants, which are used to educate the public about childhood diseases such as juvenile diabetes and autism. We also support the Children's Miracle Network, and that support was unvitally saved countless young lives. The American Legion does these things not because it can, but because who we are. In short, like Private Ryan, we are earning this. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you an idea of why the American Legion exists and why we proudly observe the birthday of this great organization. Let us reflect on the preamble of the Constitution of the American Legion. For God and country, we associate ourselves together for the following purposes: to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, to maintain law and order, to foster and perpetuate 100% Americanism, to preserve the memories and the instances of our associations with the great wars, to inculcate a sense of individual obligation to the community, state, and nation, to combat the autocracies of both the classes and the masses, and to make right the master of might, to promote peace and goodwill on earth, to safeguard and transmit to posterity the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy, to consecrate, sanctify our comradeship by our devotion to mutual helpfulness. Legionnaires can proudly be many accomplishments during our organization's 100 years of service to America. And as it has been our founding, when America calls, American Legionnaires will continue to do as Captain Miller implored. Through service, we will justify our sacrifices made. We will earn this. God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you, Commander Paycheck. Now let me introduce the Assistant Adjutant General of Massachusetts, Brigadier General Mark Merlino.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Merlino. I'm Assistant Adjutant General of Massachusetts National Guard, Nation's First, and also the Chief Engineer for the National Guard for all 54 states and territory for the Corps of Engineers, which built this lovely fairground. Thank you, John, and the American Legion Post for inviting us out here. A few things I want to talk about is the Massachusetts National Guard. Why are we here? So on behalf of General Keefe and myself and the rest of the guardsmen, 8,500 guardsmen in Massachusetts here, we are nation's first. It all started here in Massachusetts. Back in 1636, we first formed with citizen soldiers like myself who have jobs to pick up muskets or rifles to defend our freedoms and securities, our freedom of right to speech, religion, all of that stuff. It's folks like ourselves we're here to support. And it started back in 1636, but in 1775, those rebels from Boston, Massachusetts, the Battle of Lexington and Concord, nation's first. It was Massachusetts guardsmen who actually started and invented America, we like to say here, as nation's first, and formed up. George Washington came here just 225 years ago. I think my math may be a little off, but to form the Army in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And the Massachusetts Guardsmen were here to be part of that. The Guard has been involved with every single major war and battle. That the victory to start with the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War I, when this American Legion was formed, and also World War II, and recently the war on global war and terrorism. We're citizen soldiers, and really what I want to tie into this is how we are. It was back in 100 years ago, there was 20 National Guard officers in Paris who helped to form the American Legion, to do the great things that the American Legion are doing. I have a personal connection to the Legion because I joined the Massachusetts National Guard for the GI Bill, which I took advantage of to pay for my school 35 years ago. I never thought I'd still be here. I was a private back then. I never thought I'd be a general. Go figure. But I stayed in 35 years, and it was because of the GI Bill that got me in to serve in the military to learn about what to do. I also played Legion baseball growing up in Burlington, Massachusetts. And recently with my two boys was involved with the Scout program, which I know the Legion is all about. So really, it's outstanding, great thing. I'm really honored to be here today. Just a few more words. To be here with Teddy Roosevelt IV, a great American who served in uniform, whose great-grandfather was one of our greatest presidents, who was an environmentalist, but was a visionary more than all, to actually bring our country to where we are and for our freedom. So I'm very honored, Mr. Roosevelt, to be here. Thank you very much. Last thing I would like to do is thank you for your support, the town of Spencer. Thank you for allowing citizen soldiers in this great Commonwealth to serve. today. I know we have 164th Trans Company who are out here with their vehicles, but I really want, my last thing was to thank you, all the veterans. If you could take a moment, please stand. If you served in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard, I want to thank you personally for your service, for what you've done. I'm about to retire, but I'm going to be there with you to serve in the Legion or wherever, but thank you for your service to make this country as great as it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General. We really appreciate that. Now I'd like to recognize our town committees, our town moderator, William Shemeth, our select board members, Chairman Gary Woodbury, Vice Chairman Ralph Hicks, Wendy Berthium, Warren Manette, and Tony Pepe. Thank you all for coming. And without their help, we would also not be here. I would like to recognize our state representatives, Donnie Berthium, Peter Durant, and State Senator Ann Goby. Ann and Peter want to come forward?
You can't, that's right, don't embarrass. But good afternoon, what a beautiful day. Is this awesome or what? It's fantastic. And thank you, Mr. Roosevelt. You absolutely graced us with your presence today. You and your family have a very rich history of your military service, your public service, and we are so honored that you joined us today. Thank you very much. Commander, it was nice to hear a little bit about the things that the American Legion does. And when you mentioned about the GI Bill, just a very quick story, because it was the American Legion during World War II that prevailed upon Franklin Roosevelt to make sure that he was going to do something for those returning from World War II and to help them out with the GI Bill. And that to me is very personal, because my dad, as many of you know, was in the Seabees during World War II, and it was because of that GI Bill that he was able to start a 2-bay garage that put clothes on my back and my 5 brothers and my mother and food on the table. And so we couldn't have done it without the Legion and the GI Bill. So that's a personal thank you for that. I appreciate it. And when you look around today and you look around the things that happen in the town of Spencer, you can trace things back to Post 138. This post continues to do over and over again things that you don't even hear about. They do so many things behind the scenes to help veterans and their families. I wanted to have an opportunity today to just recognize them. And also, I'm a member of the American Legion Auxiliary, and unfortunately, our state president is dealing with a very severe family health issue today and could not be here. But on behalf of Coral May Grout, we also want to recognize for everything that Post 138 has done, and for marking 100 years of providing the finest examples of service and commitment to veterans and their families.
Oh, great.
And I would ask my colleagues, Representative Durant, Representative Berthium, to please come up.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll be brief. I just want to congratulate the Legion as well on all that they've done for this town and for those service members returning and for all the Legions and all their efforts. I do have a citation from the Massachusetts House of Representatives that says, "Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincere congratulations to Gaudette Kirk Post 138 in recognition of the occasion of your 100th anniversary of the American Legion. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success. Signed this 15th day of June by the Speaker of the House, Robert DeLeo, myself, Peter Durant, and State Representative Donnie Berthium." Congratulations.
This feels kind of weird just because I'm a member of the Post giving myself a citation, but I will just say thank you. Thank you to all my colleagues for what you've done for this celebration. It was amazing today. And thank you most of all for everybody that came out to join and celebrate the Legion's 100th anniversary. Thank you. Hoo-ah!
Thank you, Donnie, Peter, and Ann. Really appreciate that. To help me introduce our special guest speaker for the day, allow me to introduce from Post 138, Spencer, Captain Glenn Fletcher, United States Navy Special Operations, retired. Glenn?
thought Annie had the microphone at the right level for me. Thank you. Welcome, Patriots, to the 100th anniversary of the American Legion. Are you having a good time? I have the distinct pleasure and honor of walking point for one of the most amazing people that I have ever met, coming from one of the most amazing families that ever existed in America. Our guest of honor is the great-grandson of the 26th President of the United States. He is the grandson of the co-founder of the American Legion. His family has been involved in every conflict since before this nation was a nation. That is quite a war record. He is a warrior himself. He has served 2 combat tours in Vietnam as a Navy frogman assigned to Underwater Demolition Team 11. A lot of people don't know what the Navy frogmen did in Vietnam. But let me assure you, the Viet Cong have a real good memory of what they did. They brought unconventional warfare to Southeast Asia on a grand scale. The Viet Cong had a name for the United States Navy frogmen. They called them the men with green faces. The men with green faces struck terror into the hearts of the Viet Cong. Why did they have green faces? Because no matter what color your skin is, at night, that skin shines. And so they would camouflage their skin. They would take a triangular bandage, green also, tie it around their head if they were blonde, or use it as a headband to keep the sweat out of their eyes so it didn't destroy their sight picture if they had to shoot. They operated at night. They operated on the Viet Cong's home territory. They operated in the most dangerous spot in Vietnam, in the Mekong Delta and the Rung Sat Zone. They ended up mostly working at night. Their uniform was tiger stripe camis, nylon undergarments for the reason to keep leeches off their body, and Levi's, because Levi's stood up better than anything else. So they were unconventional not only in their warfare, but in their dress. They would operate at night in the Mekong and in the Rung Sat, slipping into the water, into the creeks, into the canals, always on a kill and capture mission. These men with green faces would ambush the Viet Cong, maybe for intelligence purposes, by taking the last guy on a patrol and putting him in a chokehold, just enough to subdue him and bring him back. Or maybe he wasn't going to be that lucky and find the primary weapon that the UDT carried was not a firearm, but a 7-inch fighting knife called a K-bar, which found its way into many of VC. The Navy frogmen were turned into the Navy SEALs in 1983, converted over, but all SEALs went through UDTRA or BUDS, the toughest military training on the planet, has the highest attrition of any military training there is. It is with the greatest of pleasure and the highest honor of my life to introduce and bring forward the former United States Navy Lieutenant Commander SEAL Theodore Roosevelt IV. Would you please stand and give him a Hooyah Spencer welcome?
Good afternoon, Spencer, Massachusetts. Good. What a pleasure it is to join all of you here and your families on this fine day. Thank you all for inviting me to share with you your love of country and community and to be part of the celebration, and also to Captain Fletcher for that glowing introduction that's far more than I deserve. Spencer does love a parade. I had the privilege of being driven down on a Jeep troop transport, and I would say that half of Massachusetts lined either side of the road. And the best part of the parade were the kids really enjoying a parade. It was fun, and that memory will linger till my dying breath of driving down Route 9, the same route that General Knox drove in a different direction, bringing the guns or the cannons from Fort Ticonderoga, which forced the British, when they were placed on Dorchester Heights, to evacuate Boston. Today is about you. It is about this community and communities across Massachusetts, as well as our nation. It is about communities that may feel forgotten and adrift in change that they did not choose. It is about all our communities that struggle today and stay connected to our history, understand our present, build a future that is faithful to the best in all of us and the promise of our nation. As I look at you, I see friends and neighbors and others. I saw the Legionnaire Riders. I see representatives here from 27 different posts throughout the state, all of whom have embedded deeply into their soul a sense of commitment to the nation and to their communities. I salute all of you. Events such as this one are heart and soul American, a country that, with two faithful exceptions in our time, Vietnam and Iraq, never sought out international conflicts, but it will rise with a mighty roar when conflicts find it. A country that is nothing so much as a tough, pragmatic idealism. Valor that does not require medals, but does require all of us to rise to the occasions before us, and most of us do. I visited the Spencer Cemetery on my way here today. There, as in so many communities across New England, you will see surnames that go back to the Revolutionary War. Surnames repeated down over many generations through many conflicts. Sadler, Adams, Sinclair, Prouty, Bemis. The name Bemis is carried today as part of a Bemis and Hodge. What an honor to a family that has shown a lot of persistence. And with those names in all of our communities, we see the constant inflow of more recent names, of the new arrivals who embraced this country and brought the same principal resolve to defending it. There are an incredible number of descendants of French Canadians who came to this town and some of the neighboring towns. But in the cemetery, you can see the Revolutionary War. You can see the Civil War. You see the Grand Army. You see a monument to the citizens of Spencer who lost their lives with General Custer. You see veteran names from World War I, of course, World War II, and you see Vietnam veterans. This morning I had an incredible privilege. I met a World War II veteran who served on a destroyer, the USS Hall, was in 20 engagements in the Pacific against the Japanese, was awarded 8 Bronze Stars. The name of that individual who's here today is Pete Contrara, and I really want to shout out what he's done. There are not many of the World War II veterans here, but what a privilege it was to have the opportunity to meet with them. We also see, the names of founders and the workers in bakeries and woolen mills and wire mills, shoe companies, and broom factories. This is an entrepreneurial town, and it knows how to get things done. We also see men and women who served in the police and fire departments and all of our wars. Massachusetts history is practically a natural wonder. Did you know that Paul Revere's grandsons fought in the Civil War? One died in Antietam and one fought in Gettysburg. One survived, not entirely unscathed. He was court-martialed for disobeying orders during a battle, not too dissimilar to his famous grandfather, who was court-martialed also. The Massachusetts Army units that fought in the Civil War included the 1st African American Regiment, the 54th, led by Robert Gould Shaw, as well as the 1st Irish Regiment, the 9th. In sum, what we are looking at when we look at one another today is blood, work, and commitment to family, place, and nation, but above all else, to freedom. That's why I've been so pleased to participate in the American Legion's 100th anniversary celebrations. I suspect that my grandfather, Theodore Roosevelt Jr., would not be surprised in the least at the endurance of this organization, found as it was on the goodwill all of you and our firm national commitment to the men and women in our armed services. As he once said, quote, no one man can claim to be the founder of the American Legion, and he never wanted, nor did he deserve that credit. No matter any other considerations, Ted Jr. only saw the soldier, nothing else. The soldier mattered. Those who gave all deserved all in return. A fundamental tenet of the American Legion has always been, a veteran is a veteran. Today, this includes 2.2 million women, 10% of the overall veteran population. One of my grandfather's favorite heroes in World War I was William Henry Johnson. His story is a perfect illustration of why we needed and continue to need the American Legion. Grandfather described William as one of the 5 bravest soldiers in the war. The Germans called him the Black Death. He fought with the 369th or Harlem Hellfighters. If this sounds a little like a Quentin Tarantino movie, but it was the real McCoy. Real life, real men, veterans. He killed 4 men in hand-to-hand combat using the butt end of his jammed rifle and a knife. It is estimated that he withstood an assault of at least 30 men. The papers later wrote, Germans ran shrieking into the night. Now that might have been a little bit of propaganda. While both men received the Croix de Guerre from the French, our nation failed them. William Johnson only received a medal after his death. Even worse, he was badly injured in the battle, but the injury never made it into his military record. He had a silver plate in his foot and could no longer work as a porter as he'd done before the war. He died unacknowledged and penniless. Grandfather came home from World War I, perhaps one of the most brutal wars ever fought, and he could not place a period on his service, a period that could leave the returning soldier, such as William Johnson, without comfort and aid. He knew that their service demanded more of all of us. It demanded that we remember our veterans and their families with concrete action that does not falter and that does not waver, that is not subject to the whims of politics. That belongs to neither party and to no ambition other than memory and duty. And veterans remember that when they serve and they swore their oath of allegiance, that oath does not have an expiration date, and most veterans continue to serve in one way or another. And that is the American Legion now entering its second tour of duty, its second 100 years. As you've heard earlier, the American Legion has given us the VA health system, youth programs to teach and inspire future leaders, recognition and treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder, and illnesses caused by Agent Orange. It's ironic that CDC, about which I have a very high opinion, spent millions of dollars and concluded that Agent Orange did not cause cancer. The American Legion spent a fraction of that, I think $25,000, and proved conclusively that Agent Orange is a carcinogenic. And I'm sad to say that many of my fellow colleagues who served at the same time as I did in Vietnam have come down with prostate cancer, which we think was attributed to Agent Orange that they got in that was in the water when they were wading through some of those creeks. Now, the Legion is a massive support network for needy families and children. It is important to remember there was no VA when the American Legion was established. There was no GI Bill for education and career opportunities. Now millions of veterans receive health care, home loans, education, and training through the VA. At any one time today, some 3,000 American Legion service officers are working on nearly 800,000 VA benefits cases free of charge, and millions of volunteer hours are being logged at VA healthcare facilities every year by members of the American Legion family. A healthy VA for the future must always be a priority for the American Legion, regardless of what century it is. Importantly, we give ourselves this, our association, our comradeship, our devotion to one another. We are intimately woven into the fabric of this nation through rural and urban landscapes, wherever our veterans are found. Across our country, there are American Legion posts and volunteers, your neighbors and mine coming together to meet the needs of their communities. Where there are still local newspapers, there are American Legion stories. Post 64 sends 4 local residents to State Trooper Training Program. Salisbury to host American Legion Baseball State Championship. American Legion hosts sock drives for combat troops. Famously, in 1835, Alexis de Tocqueville wrote this about America: Americans of all ages, all conditions, all minds, constantly unite everywhere that at the head of a new undertaking, you would see the government in France or a great lord in England. Count on it that you will see an association of citizens in the United States. This is the practice of democracy, the free association of like-minded to advance a shared cause. And there are few causes as great as this. But we are also soldiers. We also know the lack of discipline. We know what it takes to storm the hill or hold a bridge. We know what it takes to get it done. And so we did. And we will continue to do so. We have the American Legion because the World War I doughboys and doughgirls came home from war and remembered. They remembered their comrades in arms so well that they have shielded, comforted, and lifted up more generations than they ever knew. We are the children whom most of those soldiers never met. I never met my grandfather, but we are their legacy. Together we struggle to ensure that a William Henry Johnson will never again be abandoned by our nation. Today, we honor that together. God bless America.
Thank you, Mr. Roosevelt. Very inspiring. Before we conclude our opening ceremony, I would like to invite everybody at some point this afternoon to visit our Table for One display to the right of the stage. Unfortunately, the wind hasn't been really that kind to it, but it represents our comrades that did not make it home from the battlefield. I would like to announce the Spencer Cable Access will have a memory booth set up in the steel building that has the Super Bowl trophies on display at the Spencer Fairgrounds between 2:30 and 4:30 today. All of you are invited and encouraged to visit the booth to record your memories and thoughts about your service, that of your loved ones, or your thoughts on being home while your family members were away serving our country. The recordings will be shared on Spencer Cable Access and YouTube. A link will be provided on the American Legion 100th Anniversary webpage. We will be pulling the winning raffle tickets for the Harley, Money Cake, and the Gronk Ball at 4 o'clock. And there will be a bonfire on the demolition pit at dusk. Live entertainment will begin very shortly with Tequila Bonfire, followed by a short dance routine from members of the Kara Anderson Dance Studio in North Brookfield, Whitney Doucette and Moonshine Band, Mixed Nuts with our own Jeff Anderson, and all the way from Nashville, Tennessee, Dustin Herring and his band. At this point, I would like to introduce Teresa Peralt of the Quilts of Valor for a special presentation. Teresa?
Thank you very much for having me here today, and welcome to Lieutenant Commander Roosevelt. I'm a representative from the Quilts of Valor Foundation. Quilts of Valor Foundation has a mission to be able to cover all military personnel with quilt of valor. It doesn't matter where you served or what you did, it's just touched by war. We get together, we have 7,000 groups in the Massachusetts area that get together, sew quilts. There are over 40,000 in all the 50 states. In 2003, a lady by the name of Catherine Roberts decided that her son was deployed and she was very upset about it. She wanted to do something to make sure that she could comfort him or all the vets that were there. So one night while she was dreaming, she dreamt that she walked through a wooded area. She found him sitting on a log, and as dreams do, she had a blanket in her hands. She covered him with that blanket, and upon covering him with that blanket, she felt more comfortable, and so did he. Next morning she got up, she got her ladies together, and they sewed some quilts. They went a few days later to Walter Reed Army Hospital because they lived in Maryland, went to the chaplain, and they said, please make sure you give these to our vets to make sure they comfort. He said, well, there's only a few, and she said, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. He came back the next day and said, how many and how fast? And that's what started the grassroots movement for Quilts of Valor. Because we are doing this from our heart, nobody gets paid. We work on donations of material and monetary donations, but the point is, no quilt has to be paid for. It is free to the veteran. And our philosophy is touched by war, and I want to take a couple of minutes to tell you what touched by war really means. The mission of Quilts of Valor Foundation is to cover service members and veterans touched by war with comforting and healing quilts of valor. Quilts of Valor's original mission was to cover service members and veterans wounded physically and psychologically with comforting and healing quilts of valor. No one really liked the word psychologically, and U.S. Army Chaplain John Callison suggested using touched by war as a replacement. The Foundation's original focus was on young service members wounded in Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom. Catherine Roberts, the founder, recalls the light of inclusiveness that she experienced at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Traveling Ball in 2009. Catherine's group planned to award Quilts of Valor to the OIF and OE veterans, but none were present. Patriot Guard veterans were there to ride past the wall on their motorcycles. They received them instead. Catherine recalls that the Vietnam vet said over and over again to her, "Ma'am, this is the first time in 40 years anyone has ever said thank you and thank me for your service. I've had that experience also." From then on, any warrior who has been touched by war, no matter when his or her service, could receive a quilt of valor. No questions asked. Some in our community regret the removal of the word combat. Others welcome the change as it provides a way to recognize and honor any service member or veteran who has taken the oath of enlistment, vowing that he or she will lay down his or her life for our country and freedoms. The signer promises to defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. These Americans vow to give their lives for you and me, no questions asked. We cannot judge what being touched by war means to a veteran. It is different for each depending on where or when they served. A nurse at Landstuhl Air Force Base, Walter Reed, Topeka, Kansas, a nurse or medic at Dover preparing remains for burial, a general serving in the Pentagon, an infantry soldier serving in a war zone in a humanitarian effort, or just down the street at the local armory. As we award these quilts of valor, let us do so not with judgment, but with trust. Trust that these veterans have been touched by war. Those who wear or have worn the uniform are without question the most profoundly affected. What started in 2003 with 3 or 4 quilts has risen to over 220,657 quilts as of today. Thank you. May we continue to cover as many as we can. And thank you for being here to honor all of our veterans and the American Legion. I have just a little poem to take a little more time to read. It's called, "It is a Veteran." It is a veteran, not the preacher, who has given us the freedom of religion. It is the veteran, not the reporter, who has given us the freedom of the press. It is the veteran, not the poet, who has given us the freedom of speech. It is the veteran, not the campus organizer, who has given us the freedom to assemble and the right to demonstrate. It is the veteran, not the police, who have given us the right to secure our persons. It is the veteran, not the lawyer, who has given us the right to a fair trial. It is the veteran, not a politician, who has given us the right to vote. It is the veteran who salutes the flag. It is the veteran who serves under the flag, who gave his oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, our nation, against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And it is the veteran willing to give his or her life to protect your freedoms and mine, and whose casket will be covered by the flag. May God bless all of our veterans. Thank you. We have a special award that we want to give today to one of our famous veterans. He's famous in public service, but he's also a very famous in his military service. Lieutenant Commander Theodore Roosevelt. Can you come up here?
Thank you.
This quilt was designed by the ladies from the Lashaway Quilt Guild and the Spencer Quilts of Valor. It has been signed by almost all of the members from the Spencer American Legion, and we award it to you, and has all your little signatures on it that you need. We hope that you use it to keep you nice and warm. Please do not hesitate to make sure that no matter how often you use it and how much you might spill your coffee, your drink, your juice, or whatever on it, throw it in the washing machine, put it in the dryer. It makes it more comfortable every time you use it. It scrunches up. And can we wrap you in it, please?
Look at that. What an amazing day. Oh.
Well, you come come over here and turn around. Now turn around to the audience. We have also a little thing that you and I may call a pillowcase, but I was told by many of the servicemen that was given their quilts overseas when they were picked up in the field, the quilt went around them, but the documents flew all over the helicopter, so they put them in here as a document holder. So this is a pillowcase and a document holder.
Oh, wonderful, thank you, wow, look at that.
And I have one more little thing for you. Lieutenant Commander Theodore Roosevelt IV, the Quilts of Valor Foundation wishes to recognize you for your service to our nation. We consider it a privilege to honor you, though we may never know the extent of your sacrifice and service to protect and defend the United States of America. And as an expression of gratitude, we award you this Quilt of Valor.
Wow, thank you, that's great. Thank you. Hoo-yah. Wow, this is just amazing, wow, look at this, we gotta keep it off the floor, off the deck here.
That's okay, it's washable. Remember I said it was washable?
Let's not have to put it in the washing machine as soon as I get home. It's wonderful, thank you.
I just want to say thank you to everybody who is here, and anybody who wants to can stop by our booth because we have plenty of little signature blocks that you can sign, and we will put them in future quilts, and a quilt will hang in the Spencer American Legion. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you again. And ladies and gentlemen, performing the America the Beautiful, Lisa Musente.
Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plains. America, ooh, America, God shed His grace on thee, crown thy good in brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Oh, America, oh, America, God shed His grace on thee, crown thy good in brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
That was Lisa Musente. Enjoy the music for the rest of the day, folks. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate you.
This is Mary Braney from Spencer Cable Access, and I am here with a very distinguished veteran, Miss Phyllis Gallant, who is also a lifelong Legion member of the Chester P. Tuttle Post in Auburn. Welcome, and thank you very much for coming to share with us.
You're welcome.
And you were in the Navy?
I was was in the Navy, in the hospital corps.
Yeah. And you just told us about VJ Day.
On VJ Day, I was on stage entertaining the troops.
And where were you? What country?
I was in Norfolk, Virginia, in the hospital corps there.
And so these were troops who had been injured
These were coming through in the ships coming in into Norfolk, Virginia.
And they had come from both Europe and Asia.
All over, yes.
How long did you stay there?
I was there 2 years.
And
I really was fascinated about the whole thing. I didn't enjoy my work in a way because of all the troops coming in, but I did get the experience of doing all those things.
And then, did you leave the service and stay in healthcare?
Yes, I did. Yes, I was an LPN.
Excellent. And then, did you work in hospitals around here as well?
I worked in one hospital. After I got married, I stayed and had the children, and I waited until they were all in school before I really went to work, and I went to work part-time.
And when did you join the American Legion?
I joined the American Legion, I think, in 1956. So I've been in the Legion for over 60 years.
Yes, wow. Congratulations, and thank you very much. Is there anything else I didn't ask that you'd like to talk about?
I guess I can't think of anything.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. Once again, this is Phyllis Gallant, who is 98 years old, who was an LPN in the hospital corps in Norfolk, Virginia during World War II.
Hi, my name is Lee Warren. This is my wife, Donna Warren. We did the ride this morning in dedication to Donna's dad, who was a Korean and Vietnam veteran. Paul Romeo Gagnon, God bless you. May you rest in peace, my friend. Love you.
Hi, I'm Joe O'Hara. I'm the Area Director for the Northeast Field Office of Operation Homefront. We are a national nonprofit whose mission is to build strong, stable, and secure military families so that they can thrive, not simply get buy-in, but thrive in the communities they work so hard to protect. We serve junior enlisted service members and their families. We have family support programs. We help kids with backpacks and school supplies, holiday toys. We have Star-Spangled Baby showers. And we have permanent and temporary housing. And last year we gave away our 600th mortgage-free home. And we're happy to say that 92% of our expenditures go directly into programs and services. Very happy to be here today.
Hi, my name is Danielle Grandine, and I am the treasurer of the Dudley Gendron American Legion Riders, Chapter 414 out of Sutton, Massachusetts. And these are all of my fellow riders from other chapters, Uxbridge, Northborough, Auburn, and Oxford. And we're here to tell you about the American Fallen Riders Fund. So the American Legion and the Legion entity's main mission is to support and help our veterans and our communities. Some of our members are veterans, but we're all from military families. We have recently found that helping out our fellow riders has been difficult. The Fallen Riders Fund was originally established because one of our riders was in an accident and needed assistance. In the year since we've begun, we've helped 3 of our fellow riders. The group was originally started by members of 5 chapters in the Central Mass area. Again, Oxford, Sutton, Uxbridge, Auburn, and Northborough. We do what we can to help each other out while we continue to support the mission of the American Legion and helping out our veterans and our communities. Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of my grandfather, Edward F. Harper, Seaman First Class, United States Navy, World War II. He went and fought the war as one of the older guys on his ship, an LST. He was 24 when he was in the war. That was old then. And when he came back, he didn't talk too much about it. And I suspect a lot of people didn't talk about it. Everybody kind of contributed to the war effort. I mean, you had 6-year-old kids getting tetanus, collecting metal scrap metal for the war effort. But he saw a lot of things that he never really talked about. And he just went on with his life, built a home for his family, built a home for his son that now I had the opportunity to purchase and I live in today. But he did a lot more than that. He did things for the community. He was president of the Lions Club. And my fondest memory of him was toward the end of his life, he got very ill. And every door that closes brings a window of opportunity, and that meant I got to spend a lot of time with him. And I will never forget the day that I spent with him, and I had a lot of fears, not irrational fears, but I just had fears when I was a kid. And one of the things was nuclear war. It was the 80s, and I started to talk about it one day, and he said, we had a nuclear war already, and it was World War II, and I was in it. And for the first time, he really started to talk about some of his experiences. And when he was done, I'll never forget this, and I thank you, Grandpa. He said, the reason why we did all that is so you wouldn't have to. And so, thank you, Grandpa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Donnie Berthume, state representative for the town of Spencer, former selectman. I'm here to talk about my military service today. So when I was in high school, while all the other kids were deciding where they wanted to go to college, I knew probably freshman, sophomore year that I always wanted to be in the military, and I picked the branch of service Navy because my father was in the Navy. So the end of my junior year or beginning of my senior year, I enlisted in the Navy and graduated in May of '84, went in the Navy October of '84, got out of boot camp that December, on to many schools, and then served in Florida, Mayport, Florida, on the USS Charles F. Adams, which was a guided missile destroyer, for 5 years until I got out of the military in 1990. When I was on the ship, I was an electrician. I went to electricity school in Great Lakes. At first, I went to boot camp in Great Lakes, just outside of Chicago. It's very cold in the winter. I went to basic electricity electronics school, then electrician's A school. After that, went to further schooling in Orlando, Florida, and then was transferred to the ship. So I spent 5 years as an electrician on a destroyer that was commissioned in 1960, so you can imagine every time we shot the guns, the lights went out, and I had to fix stuff. So it was a great experience. I would advise it to anyone who's interested in a military career or they're just not sure what they want to do. You will have fun, trust me.
I'm with Paul Perrin, a Navy veteran and a member of the Spencer American Legion Post. And welcome, and thank you for agreeing to speak with us.
You're welcome.
And so we were just talking, and Paul was in the service starting in 1962, and he had one extremely interesting adventure. And could you tell us about your adventure with President Kennedy's car?
Well, I was at the transit base in Newport, and my ship had gone to Scotland, and I was waiting for it to return to go on board. And the Secret Service came and asked for 10 volunteers to do some driving, but nobody's told us what it was. And so we put our finest uniforms on and met at the motor pool the following morning. And we were instructed to go into the motor pool, grab a car, and bring it out and park it in the parking lot. Well, as it turned out, I had picked up John Kennedy's limo. And so I got a chance to drive it all day long from Newport to Hyannis. And then we met Jackie, and she came out and said hi to us. And then they took us back to the base, and that was the end of that.
But that was still very exciting to...
well, it was different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you had occasion to see the car again.
Yes, I did. Last year, I have a friend of mine who lives in Detroit, and the Ford Museum is in Detroit. Unbeknown to me, that car was a leased vehicle to the president. It was in the museum, and I saw it from a substantial distance away, and I recognized it, and I got all goosebumpy. But it gave me chills, you know what I'm saying, to see it after all them years. But I did get a chance to lean over the rail and touch it one more time.
Good for you.
But
And
it was I wish I had pictures and stuff, but because everything's a secret, nobody had a camera, so nobody took pictures of anything, and so that was too bad.
and even if you tried, they'd probably take it away from you. Anyway,
That wouldn't surprise
if it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you also spent some time in Cuba when you were on
I was
duty.
in during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and it was only an adventure for 3 weeks. We went there halfway between Cuba and Florida, and we were picking up refugees that were trying to get into the United States. And we'd pick them up. We didn't let them come on board the ship, because if they come on board the ship, they become American citizens. So we couldn't allow that to happen. We called the Coast Guard. Coast Guard would pick them up. We never saw them again. But we still didn't know where we were, because they don't tell you nothing. It's a need to know, and we didn't need to know.
So, looking at what's going on in Cuba now and the U.S. relations, et cetera, must remind you of some of the things.
Better than it ever was. You know, we can travel there now and enjoy the country. It's a nice country, you know. But other than that, years ago, people were afraid to go there. I don't blame them. And they were so close to us that they were a real threat, you know. So, because if they had done what they planned on doing, you and I wouldn't be talking.
And I remember when that was going on. I was still in elementary school, but I do remember the headlines and the tension and you know, and what it was.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But since we didn't know, weren't worried about it. We
Well-
went fishing and swimming, and you know, in the tropical waters, and it was fun.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
I'm here with Jean Perrin, who is the wife of Paul Perrin. We spoke with Paul Perrin in another interview. And this morning in the presentations on the stage, we heard from Teresa Perot, who is the Massachusetts coordinator for the Quilts of Valor Foundation. If you watch that, you will see how clearly that Teresa explained what the Quilts of Valor are. Jean is one of the Spencer participants in the Quilts of Valor program, and I understand you do something very special for the people that you make quilts for.
Yes, I like to do the embroidery, and I find out what branch of the service they're in and what they did in the service, and I try to incorporate that into the embroideries, incorporate it with the squares to do the tops for the quilts.
And so you really personalize the things.
Yes.
And how many of you given out in Spencer?
I don't know how many we've given out. I know I've made 10 myself, 10 tops myself.
How long has this been going on?
The Quilts of Valor, I think since, is it 73 or 83?
And
a long
in Spencer
time.
as well?
No. It's newer than that in Spencer.
And right now you're working on one to commemorate this event that we're at today.
Yes, we are commemorating the 100th year anniversary of the American Legion, and I belong to Post 138 in Spencer. And what we do is we have a center square with the emblem, and we're having the vets all sign squares, and we're going to incorporate it in the whole top of the quilt, and that will hang at the Legion Hall.
Thank you so much for talking to us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm Holly Wilsma and I'm here with the Spencer Rescue Squad. We're providing first aid coverage for the event today, but we're also very pleased and proud to be a part of this special celebration of the 100th anniversary of the American Legion. We are proud to provide services to the town, but also very proud to be a part of this town and to serve its citizens to the best of our ability. I'm personally very happy to be here and have been very excited and have been getting my history nerd on with all the things I've seen today. I met Theodore Roosevelt IV, very wonderful gentleman. I enjoyed speaking with him. I'm a very big fan of his great-grandfathers, but also of his grandfather, who was a fascinating individual, followed his father's military footsteps a little bit further. I'm sure Theodore I would have loved to go a little further with his military career, but Theodore Jr. Was quite an active officer during the Great War, and then especially in World War II, where he was involved in the storming of the Normandy beaches, dying a couple of weeks afterwards of a massive heart attack, but having reached the rank of Brigadier General at that time. A lot of people may not know that because he's a little bit overshadowed by his very famous father, Theodore the President. But again, so as a historian, I'm very happy to be here and have interacted with a lot of the veterans and also some of the reenactors that we saw. I was unable to see the parade because we were covering up here at the fairgrounds, but it's been wonderful. It's a fantastic celebration. I'm so pleased that the Legion was able to put this on, and grateful to those who contributed both time and also financially. State representatives were very helpful with that too, with finding some funds to send over. So that's wonderful. And I'm very, very happy for the Legion and thank them for their efforts in putting this on. As far as veterans go, I will say that over at Spencer Rescue, we do have some folks who are active in the Air and Army National Guards. So we do have some veteran activity working for the town over there. And also my father is a veteran of the Vietnam War. He served in 1967. He was in headquarters platoon 527th Truck Company. And he was drafted, but I know that he's very proud of his service. It took him a long time to open up about it because the things that he saw over there affected him greatly. But for him, opening up about it helped me. I've been in EMS for 23 years and have also had some problems with PTSD and just some of the things that I've seen that have affected me. So hearing my dad open up about his experiences in Vietnam was very helpful to me and helpful in not only my healing but also in my continuing of my career here too. So that's very special to me, and I'm very, very grateful for my dad and all he's done for the country and also for our family. So once again, Spencer Rescue Squad is very happy to be here and happy to serve this town in any way it can, but especially with its emergency needs. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Spencer Cable Access, for all that you do as well.
I'm with two representatives of the Worcester Vet Center who have come out today to the 100th anniversary of the American Legion. How old is the center?
This week we celebrated our 40th anniversary for vet centers. They were founded in 1979. That was when Congress made them a legit type of agency and connected them to the VA. Prior to that, the Vietnam vets, when they returned, didn't have the best welcome and couldn't get the services they were looking for. So they started a peer-to-peer support center, which is how the vet center started. And since that time, it's now evolved to a full counseling center. And we treat Vietnam vets, World War II vets, any type of combat vet, up into and including current war vets. We also treat people who have military sexual trauma, whether or not they deployed, and that can be at any time during their military career. And we also get referrals for people who have lost family members, either in action and on occasion through suicide. So we do a lot of suicide prevention as well. And what would you like to add?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of groups, over 20. We have a spouse support group, so for wives of veterans to help understand PTSD, and they support one another. We've got a military sexual trauma group. We've got multiple Vietnam vet groups. We've got groups for current conflicts as well, and we see people individually.
And what's really nice that we do that's different from the VA, we are attached to the VA in terms of funding, but are separate. Our records are separate. Our records cannot be seen by anyone. including the military, if you're still in the service. And what is really nice is that we're able to see people more frequently.
And it's entirely free, which is amazing. Counseling can be very expensive. You know, even if you have insurance, a copay could be $40, $50. You know.
So how are you funded?
Through the VA, through the federal government. So we're federal employees.
Yep.
And we're considered essential employees. So when the government shuts down, we're still there.
Now, how do you do outreach, or how do people find out about your services?
So we do outreach. This is an outreach event for us to be here. We actually have an outreach worker, Bruce Ware, who's here, and he goes out to different events to talk to people about us.
We got a mobile vet center that travels around to different events. It was at the Moving Vietnam Wall in Pelham, New Hampshire, a few weekends ago.
Right, there are actually 3 in New England, right? There's 3 in New England. We go to different events. And what is nice about it is, one, it just makes us really visible when people are walking around. But like it was when it was at the wall, that's the traveling wall, for people that get upset and need to have counseling, there's actually usually counselors like us here, so that if you needed to come in and chat, we'd be able to be here to chat with you.
There's a private room there that we can close the door and we can speak to people if needed.
And otherwise, they can just call us. You Google us, Worcester Vet Center. We'll show up. It'll have the information there for you. And there are, what'd you say, 200 or 300?
There's over 300 nationwide vet centers. I think there's like 7 in Massachusetts alone.
And do the veterans share by word of mouth, or
that's probably our biggest way.
Yeah, word of mouth. I mean, ETSing, end time in service. You know, sometimes a vet center will come in and speak to people that are leaving the military to let them know about the service. That was the case with me.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I mean, we've got male and female therapists. We got people that are veterans, and we have people that are civilians. You know, so it's a great mix. I think we provide an awesome service. Some of our groups have been going on for 10, 12, 15 years. Some of the Vietnam vet groups, and we've got a couple World War II people left, and some Korean War vets. Big amount of Vietnam, but as people are coming back from, the war on terror that's just continuing, and people are getting deployed over and over and over again. It's gonna be a lot of problems, and we're here for them.
Right, and I guess the last thing I would say is that a lot of times you think that you're okay, but check in with your family members, see what they have to say. You think I don't have PTSD. If you're walking into a restaurant and you have to have your back to the wall, if you walk in and you do, a 360 to see what's going on around you, if you're startling all the time, when the dog or the kids jump on you, or having nightmares or night sweats, give us a call.
We're at 255 Park Ave in Worcester on the 9th floor. Our number's 508-753-7902. And if you call that, you can request to see one of us. And we've got a counselor. We got mobile or outreach centers, one in Framingham and one in Fitchburg
area,
yeah. So that's make it convenient for people where Worcester, might not be convenient. One of those other places might be.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.